Hello, you amazing friends. This is your pal Edward's Ears speaking, where the tables have turned. Usually, Kristine Bell's doing LinkedIn Lives, but this time we're interviewing her. Kristine Bell, it's so honored to have you with us. How are you today, Kristine Bell?
I'm really good, Ed. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I know I shouldn't say this on LinkedIn Live, but you know our friend Dr. Steve Turley on YouTube. I feel like I'm Dr. Steve Turley interviewing one of our Patriot experts. Is that a fair way to feel, Kristine Bell?
That could be a way of describing me potentially. Or, there's many ways to describe me. I'm not a one box fits, we're all different people, aren't we, in terms of we have many nuances, all of us. I think that's a key point I want to make. Us as humans have many different aspects to ourselves. That might be one way of describing me, but there's other ways too.
Now, just for the sake of the audience, Kristine and I, we go back, I think, at least the past decade. We originally met in the early meetup scene. And I'm very honoured to know Kristine Bell all these years. Kristine Bell and I used to run
in Sydney. We were in there.
Yeah. So I lost you. Say again. I just lost you for a second, Kristine. Please say again.
I said, yes, we used to hang out at all the meetups and go around to all sorts of different networking events in Sydney, yeah?
It was great back in the day. And I've known Kristine for years. And Kristine, over the years, has become one of Sydney and Australia's top customer strategy insights experts and also a market researcher. Kristine, before we delve into politics and yes and no votes in the world, tell us a bit about you and what's been happening in your world and the sort of people you help.
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please carry on.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it was just cutting out. So yeah, I'm Kristine, Danish accent. I'm all about customer strategy. I've been doing this work for about 25 years. I started in big advertising agencies as a strategist writing creative briefs. When we write creative briefs, it's all about understanding the human insights emotionally as well, how we can connect with people emotionally, because this is how we make decisions most of the time, and then we rationalize afterwards. Yeah. And then it's all about understanding what was unique about the product or the service that we were advertising, and then giving the creatives a way to bring that to life in many different ways. I then moved into branding and innovation consultancies in London, and then into qualitative market research. But every time I did qualitative market research, it was all about creating a strategy for big businesses or the big brands I was working with. So it's either in terms of understanding the target market and segmenting the target markets based on motivations and emotional needs. It was about understanding their unique value proposition and how they stood out from the competitors. It was all about looking at messaging potentially and what is their big message promise or their brand positioning and their brand identity. Also worked a lot in innovation in terms of product and services. Big brands usually get insights to inspire them to create some new product and services. And also customer experience, of course, is really, really important. And everything needs to hang together. So we might have a great brand positioning, but if the messaging or the offer doesn't match it, then we're going to send out mixed signals in the market, and we're not going to have the same impact or connect as much as we want to with our ideal target market. And if we can't connect with them emotionally, especially, and then back it up with proof points, then we're not going to have recall. They're not going to remember us, and then we're not going to have persuasion power either.
Yeah. If I can jump in there and love it. And friends, if you've just come in, there's heaps of you watching. Thank you for watching our live streams. Please hit that like, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with Kristine Bell. She's a woman you can trust. Now, again, I don't want to be political here because I love having a LinkedIn account, and so do you, right? So I just want to say I don't mean to be political here. And just to give some context, if you're watching this in the future, in Australia, we had a referendum. The yes or no vote, very controversial vote, definitely divided Australia into two sectors, and the no vote won. And basically, it was about constitutional recognition of Indigenous. And again, there's different ways of framing it. It's a big, deep political issue, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about with you, amazing Kristine, is more the messaging of it, because the yes camp lost badly. And I know a lot of fantastic yes people that are coming out and taking responsibility and saying, the reason why we lost is we failed to understand how the no voters feel. We really misunderstood the market. And it's funny, I agree with it actually. And again, I don't want to be political here because I love having LinkedIn accounts, but I just want to more get at the yes camp have said straight up, they did not understand how people are feeling. Why? Not so much why is that. Can you tell us a bit more about that? How they didn't misunderstand, that were they in their own little universe? Did they not care? What do you think was going on there, Kristine Bell?
Well, of course, I don't know what went behind their messaging
Yeah.
and whether they did do some research or they spoke to a certain demographics or a certain type of person who were telling them how they felt, and that might have been skewed towards people who would say yes versus no. Who knows what they did to get to the campaign that they ran? But what I can say around the campaign in terms of how it ran in Australia, or at least how it was perceived potentially, was that it was very much either you are for it or you are not a nice person.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you say that, because that's the message that I got. It was very much either you do what we say or you're a bad person. And a lot of people on both sides are saying that. I think that, to me, that's how I remember it. That seems to be the thrust of their campaign, isn't it, Kristine?
That's how it came across to me. And of course, this is my personal perspective on it from what I saw. And unfortunately, that's not a great way to communicate to people, because we as human beings, we, on a very basic level, besides obviously wanting to survive, if we look at Maslow, but on a very basic level, we like to be acknowledged, we like to be seen, we like to be heard, we like to be recognized, we like to be respected. So if you want people who may not believe in your message or your point of view to listen to you, you got to open up in terms of a conversation with them, in terms of allowing people to express themselves. If people feel shut down, then you lost the ability for them to even pay attention to you. And perhaps what happened was that with this campaign that they ran, it was a little bit too divisive potentially, which is kind of ironic given that it was all about including people, not dividing people, which was kind of ironic in itself. But I think when it comes back to us as human beings, we need to feel heard and seen. We need to feel valued. We need to feel respected. And so if we are running a campaign and it's about persuading people to our point of view to then behave in a different way, it's really important that we open up to an open conversation to understand how other people think and feel. Because if we're open to hearing how they think and feel, then what it allows us to do is to work out what are the barriers, and I'm not talking about the yes or no vote here, but in general, what are the barriers to your product and service? What's stopping them from considering your category? What's stopping them from interacting with your brand or your brand offer specifically? I think a lot of people go, well, we're all about this. This is what they want. I'm just going to communicate to my customers about what I believe they want, and then surely they're going to buy. But we're forgetting that in most cases, there will be some barriers in the way. And if we do not address those barriers in a way that is persuasive, in a way that makes sense to the people we're trying to change their mindset, then they're just going to, we're talking at, what do you call it when people can't hear you? We're talking at a closed door, yeah? We're not changing anything. And so they might like a lot about it, but if we haven't overcome the barriers, then that's an issue. And maybe that was the case as well with the yes and no vote. Perhaps and I don't know whether they did research or whether they chose not to listen to what was said to them. It's really important that we dig deep with them. And that includes allowing people to speak their truth. So if we're in a society where the people, and maybe they did speak to them, but the people that was going to vote no were too scared to say anything because they're worried about being bookmarked as a racist or a divisive person or someone who doesn't care about the indigenous people. And of course, that is not the case for most people who voted no. They do care as well. It's just how they see the world, and there are other barriers that we didn't address.
Yeah, I could agree with you. I think it's very interesting how, not just in politics, but how big companies, right, especially, what they tend to do is instead of doing what you're advocating, which any smart person would, instead of trying to understand how people are thinking and respect them and approach them and persuade them, they tend to go into that big sort of corporate mode where they're just like, you're wrong. This is how you're meant to think. If you don't agree with us, too bad. And I think I won't mention a certain airline that's not Virgin Airlines that starts with Q, right? But to me, the yes vote reminded me of that airline that I'm talking about, right? It was very much, what you think is not relevant. This is how you should think, right? We're going to tell you how to think. And if you don't, you're the problem. And I think it's not just governments. I think a lot of people enter that type of persuasion where they think they can, in a way, beat people into thinking the way that they do. But you're right. Humans don't work like that. It's like the moment we feel like we're being abused, we just put up a wall and toughen up, don't we, Kristine?
That's exactly right. We close the door for open communication. So if we want unity in this world, you have to allow people to speak their real thoughts. You cannot suppress them, because once we're into suppression, we've stopped the real conversation, and therefore you're not going to persuade them, and they're not going to start listening to you either. It's just a shut door, and that's when we have division.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think it's a matter of, and again, just sort of talking generally here, I think what I love about what you advocate, Kristine, and this is why you're so very popular, is, and you've helped their own business too, and thank you, is that you're a master of understanding how people really think to help approach. So be it you're trying to persuade them or build the product offering for them, I think you're amazing at that. And I think a lot of the yes voters are coming out now, and yes advocates are saying, yeah, we totally did not understand how people felt. We just did our own thing. We broadcasted to them and all that, which is fantastic. Now, Kristine, I want to ask you, right? You do a lot of work. We're going to have a lot of business owners watching this. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you do, how you help business owners, and how people can reach out to you to get more of your help and everything.
So what I've learned, and this is where the offer came from, and it actually came from many years ago, and this is back to you. So thank you for all your support back in about 6-7 years ago when we met. I was at the time currently mostly working for big businesses, but I was really keen to reach out and meet more people, meet new business connections. And I started networking, and I met you, and you got me to network a lot more. And I ended up meeting a lot of small businesses. And this is a great way, by the way, networking is a great way to do your market research, informal market research. So I never consider networking a waste of time, even if I don't meet someone who might be a potential customer. I always consider it an opportunity to learn more and figure out who my target market is and figure out what's going on with them. So anytime you are in a conversation with someone who is potentially in your category, might be playing, being a customer in your category, use it as a way to get insights. You can have it through a normal conversation, but pick up on what they're saying and doing and telling you. So when I met you, I started networking a lot with small businesses. You got me to open up start a meetup group too. And I was so nervous, but I did it. And you also helped me start doing talks at WeWork, the co-working space, in areas that I just mentioned that I'm really interested in, which is all about customers and customer strategy and branding and messaging and customer experience and innovation. And I also started doing classes, but I didn't have an offer. And I didn't know what to offer them. So I used free classes and free talks to bring people in who clearly were interested enough to come along because of the topic that I presented. And then I thought, well, here's great research. They have come to me, and now I get to present to them. They're going to give me feedback because people love giving you feedback. They can't help themselves. And I'm getting free research, And what I learned was this. I've spoken in the last 6-7 years to over 300 small businesses, both formal research. You have also been part of my formal research and also informal research. And what I've learned is this, and this is how my offer came about. And it did take a while, and I'm not suggesting you should take 6 or 7 years if you're listening and you're building a business and take 6 or 7 years for research. I'm not suggesting that, But what I did learn,
Kristine, and do it in 2 weeks. There you go.
Exactly. But what I did learn from research, which is why it's so powerful, informal and formal research, was this: 90% of the over 300 small businesses that I've talked to, 90% or more, this is how it works. They go, okay, and often they have had another job. They might not have liked it. They've finally gone out of it. They got a passion. They got a product or service, a problem they've identified. and they're really passionate. So they go away in isolation, and then they create a product and offer, and they're just happy. Then there comes a point where they go, oh my goodness, I need to sell now. Yeah. I need to make money. Reality hits. But what happens is this: most of them, over 90%, have not spoken to the ideal target market. Some of them may have had experience in the category, but it's still different for their product and service, but they're guessing the target market. That is what happens, guessing it. Then we've been taught, because of, being in a small business environment, you're taught that, and this is very tangible. We hold on to tangible things. We're taught, okay, I need to market myself. So I must get a website. Oh, I need a brand logo. Yeah. Oh, I need to be on social media. So I need someone to help me with my social media shares and content. Or I need a sales pitch or some PR. So I need that, very tangible things. What happens is this: they go straight from, here's my product and service, which I've created in isolation, never spoken to anyone about it, haven't figured out my ideal target market, I'm guessing it, and now I'm spending time and a lot of money on hiring a brand logo person or a website designer. Usually not the same person either. Yeah, different people helping us with the tangible part of creating our marketing, be it a website, social media, brand logo. So you go to the brand logo person, and the brand logo person goes, what's your strategy? Who's your target market? We can't create this without that. So you go, I think this is it. Yeah. I think this might be it. Yeah. And the brand logo person goes, well, that may be enough or not. I'm going to help you with your strategy. Yeah. So now they're creating a strategy for you, which may be relevant, may not be relevant to your target market. Then you go to the website designer, and the same things happen there. You go to the sales coach, the same thing happens. But inevitably, what we then have is a lot of different marketing executions that we paid money and time for. And most often they don't hang together because there's not a strategy behind the scene that hangs it all together. So inevitably what happens is a lot of small businesses may say a great thing about their offer, and it might be great, but then they're communicating something else in their messaging on social media. Their brand or their brand positioning and brand logo does not match it. And the social media or the sales pitch doesn't match, so nothing hangs together. We're not singing from the same hymn sheet. We're not telling a consistent, single-minded story. And if there's one thing I can tell you about customers, which I know you will agree with this, we are bombarded with information. Yeah. We don't remember squat. You got to be really single-minded, and this is what the big brands do really well. They're really clear on 4 or 5 key things they want you to remember about them and associate them with. And they do it really well. If I do research on BMW, Lego, Nike around the world, I'll get the same associations because they've been so good over a long period of time, repeating themselves and showing up consistently in their product, in their messaging, in their brand, and in their customer experience. Talking exactly to the ideal target market.
On that note, one of my really good friends who, and again, politically we're very different, but they're a great person. We get along really well. And of course they're from Canberra, right? We were having a chat and they just said to my face straight up, look, Ed, I think we're going to lose, right? We're not going to win this yes vote. And she's awesome because she just said straight up, and we go back many years, she just said straight to my face, this is why we lost, right? Oh, this is why we're losing, and I know we're going to lose. And I said, look, hey, I should say her name's Alison. Hey, Alison, yeah, I think you're right. But it was an interesting conversation, though, that we had, right? Interesting conversation because she said to me, Ed, I know you're not necessarily on the yes side, but if you were running the yes vote, how would you go about it? What would be your core message? And I said to her, pause for a minute. And I looked at Alison. And if you hear Alison, we love you. Amazing lady, right? Amazing lady. And I said to her, you know what I make the campaign about without doing any research? I have one singular message. It's about love for Indigenous. I make it all a positive campaign about love for Indigenous. Vote yes to loving Indigenous Australia. And she sat there and folded her arms and she goes, that's a good message. I reckon. And I said, that would probably win. And it's exactly that, because then we had the conversation exactly what you're saying, Kristine, and that instead of talking about all this weird stuff, just talk about how much you love Indigenous Australia. Yes, for Indigenous Australia. That's your message. That's it. And you're right, because when we have that one singular message, that's how we get the cut through. I think very well said, Kristine Bell.
It's so important because, we're just bombarded with information and we can't remember anything, possibly by design, yeah? And so what happens is we're trying to make decisions faster and faster, and we use our previous experiences. We are habitual creatures as well. We are risk adverse, most of us. And we tend to just go with what we know and trust. Yeah, it's all about know, like, trust. It's all about safety. It's all about making sure that we're going to have the results we want. So whatever we can do to really make that decision process faster and easier by being single-minded and consistent. So it's not just being single-minded. You could be single-minded in different ways every day, but you need to be consistent and repeat yourself. Yeah. I see a lot of people I meet in small businesses and on social media and LinkedIn especially. And in the last year, some of them I have counted that at least some of them have had 5 different things they've sold themselves on, and 5 things in 1 year. And maybe people don't, and it's like, well, if you keep changing what you're about, your offer and what you're saying in 5 times in a year, what do you think it's going to do to people who do notice? Do you think they're going to build trust with you, or do they think, what are you about? Are you sure you know what you're about? Clearly not. So why should I be sure about you? So this is what I'm all about, which is why market research is really important to me, but so is customer strategy. We need, and this is what I'm all about, and that I help small businesses with, is we need to have that single-minded strategy in place that holds it all together, and we need to stick with it. We can evolve it, but we cannot radically change it unless we absolutely must.
Yeah, it's funny you say all that, and I've told you the story many times, and Lassie thought this was funny as well. So, so a bit of context for the audience. So for years, I used to be a marketing consultant, right? Used to be marketing consultant, go on LinkedIn influencer, business networker, right? And it's probably about 3 or 4 years ago, we started to make that sort of translation from marketing consultant to, like, business network and LinkedIn. I remember originally, and this is how wrong I was. And sorry, quick hello to Martin Pratt. Great seeing you, Martin Pratt. Mike White, welcome. We've got Susan from Ontario. We've got Jacqueline with us. If you just come in, smash that like, sharing, comment, connect with Kristine. If you are watching the recording, which you probably are, please reach out to us anytime. And I remember what it was is I had this funny conversation with Lassie in that I said to myself, look, I don't know if I ever want to run a business network. I want to be more of a LinkedIn coach. Then what happened was 2 days later, these people approached me and said, oh, hey, Ed, how you doing? Great. Listen, Ed, we heard that you're an amazing business network and we have all this money. Do you want it? You're a business network, right? Do you want this money here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a business network. And it's funny because I think you said this to me. I think you were kidding, but you were only half kidding. You said this to me saying, we don't choose our niches choose us. And I think it's very true because it's funny. I never actually said, I want to build a business network. People said to me, Ed, we want you to build a business network. And I think you're right. I think when we listen to the market tells us exactly what it wants, Kristine Gold.
And true, I also believe in energy. So I believe that we're energetic beings. This is not marketing talk. We are human beings, are energetic, and we resonate, we resonate with each other energetically. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. Our niche does choose us sometimes, but also what happened was you got clear on your superpower, or maybe the market was really clear on your supermarket, and you finally realized that they were telling you what your superpower is, And your superpower is definitely in connecting people and making people feel comfortable and confident and joyful, which is why if you go to your online networking events, everyone that I speak to when we're not at the actual networking event will tell me that they just love the energy in your networking events. It's energetic. They can't quite put the finger on it, but they feel good being on an online networking event with you and with the people that you attract, because it brings in a very happy, joyful energy. And that is your superpower. So basically, it wasn't that you were not good at marketing, because you are actually extremely single-minded and very good at your branding and very clear. So and this is back to sometimes we do need to change, but then we are aware that we make a big change, and then we go all in at that. So we prepare for it, we strategize for it, rather than keep changing 5 times in a year.
And I think you're right, because there's a huge distinction between a strategic change based on research, which is what I did and what you're advocating, which I agree with. And that's very different to shiny new object syndromes. I think the people you're talking about, and again, if you are one of those people we're talking about, please stop doing this, because it's the shiny new object syndrome. They're not necessarily chasing a strategy. They're just seeing something cool and thinking that that's their golden ticket. And I think the 2 different things. Strategic change based on research is awesome. Chasing something because you think it's great is something else.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, strategically, we come to a place where we're going, this isn't quite working for me. I'm not enjoying it. It's not quite right. And that's when we may decide to make a big change. But strategically, otherwise, if we don't need to make a big change, I very much advocate for evolving slowly and surely. So we just keep evolving and growing with our strategy rather than radical change. Yeah. But we don't stay put either. We keep evolving. I've kept evolving in the last year on LinkedIn and in my strategy personally too. I'm still evolving it. I'm learning more every time I have another client. I learn something else that goes, okay, how does this feel? Does this feel right to me? Does it feel right energetically? Does it feel right for my brand? Does it feel right for what I'm offering? And I learn from it. Yeah. Small, subtle changes that others might not notice, because overall I still have one strategy in place about who I am and what I'm offering.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I couldn't agree with you more. And going back to, I love what you said earlier, and I've been really thinking this a lot lately, is how you've got to have a singular message and drive it out there. So all we do is LinkedIn and business networking. So all I talk about is LinkedIn and business networking. And I say to anyone watching, hey, have a chat with Kristine Bell to really sharpen your thinking, but you got to be very single. I agree. You got to have a very singular message you need to stick to. So, for example, I mean, you're amazing. You're about customer insights, market research. You're very clear on that. As I said to my, strategy. There you go. So, that's my fault, not yours. That's so cut. Oh, we can't. It's a live. Damn it. That's the thing about lives. You got to carry on. We can't go cut. Can't do the whole Hollywood ball. There we go. Hollyweird, I mean, not Hollywood, Hollyweird. But the bit I found fascinating was, again, going back to the, sorry to harp about the Yes campaign, but it is really big in the zeitgeist right now, and one of my Yes friends said this, Ed, we never had a singular message. Like everyone from the Yes camp, this is what they said, they said everyone from the Yes camp had a different message, where people from the No camp had a very clear message. And I think it was it. To me, I find this whole, yes, we won, and I'm happy about that. But what I find fascinating about the whole yes vote is one side had a very clear, singular message, and the other side had a very mixed message. And you're right, when you've got a complex message, nothing sticks on the target, doesn't it, Kristine?
Totally, completely. It's too hard to remember. We're bombarded with information. So unless you have the resources, and don't forget, they did have the resources. So in that way, they were hammering it home in main media, corporations, everyone went behind it, big corporations, government, etc.
Interesting though, and you're right, like the Yes camp had like a massive budget and all the corporations jumped on board, but even the corporations didn't have a clear message. So you'll see Qantas, for example, right, saying vote yes, but no one could actually say why. So
that's the point. They're not giving me a persuasion. You're trying to persuade someone who's in the no camp. You're going to give them more than you have to do it. Yeah. You got to give them something. Why should I do it?
Yeah. And to me, they never gave, and that's why I think it's fascinating talking to you about this topic. We're both politically active, again, watching what we say on, we love you, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's awesome. So please, we love having LinkedIn accounts and we love you, LinkedIn. But the thing I find fascinating is, they didn't give a reason. Like that, you're right. They would say you have to do this because we said so. They didn't actually give me a reason. Like you could have even said to me, Ed, if you love Indigenous Australia, you're going to vote less to support them. That's a good argument. No one actually told me that. If you told me that, I might actually listen. And I find it fascinating that they didn't actually give the reason. They said you should do it. Then I find it fascinating. I think they felt like they were so confident they were going to win, they didn't need to try. Is that a fair remark, Kristine, or whatever? That
was my experience too. Whether that's what they intended, who knows? But that was definitely my feeling. I just think there wasn't clarity around it. There wasn't enough of persuasion power, but there was also this sense that if I said anything, I was going to be shamed and named. Yeah. So I was already you're already put into a box in the no sayers, as in, if you say anything against it, then it's coming back to me not being a good person. Yeah. And no one likes to feel that way. So there was very much around, rather than, like you said before, let's stay positive. Let's just have a really positive message, a single-minded positive message about really loving and bringing everyone together. And we live in a divisive world. So the biggest thing you can do is to bring people together. There is nothing we crave more, most of us, normal people, normal folk, is unity.
Yeah.
We want to feel unique. We want to be allowed to be us, but we also want to be unity. And we want to come back to a good world. Yeah. We want to come back to the fact that most people are good people in this world.
Yep. Which they are.
Which they are. And that's what we're all craving in a world that is so divisive and hateful and very, very agitated at the moment, very much throwing the toys out of the basket at the moment, and also, you know, committing crimes. Crimes against humanities. And I don't know if there's any other way of saying that. You know, there's no way of wrapping that up in a nice little bow and saying it's for this or for that. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it's a matter of, and this is, and we've crossed half an hour, so we'll have to wind up the live. So I try and put in a half an hour limit so we don't drive everyone nuts. But in winding things up, this is what I want to say to everyone what I love about Kristine Bell, right? And again, I think the yes and no vote's been a great recent case study to use the demonstrator thinking, is that, you know, Kristine Bell is a master of helping you understand your audience and your customers. So A, you can do two things. You can make sure your offer is right for them, and B, you're talking to them in the right way. And I think you excel on that on many levels, Kristine Bell.
Thank you. And remember, it's all about emotional connection for most of us, and then we rationalize it afterwards. And especially, and I'm going to do a video on this soon in one of my little videos, especially if you're a service business and you're a small service business and you are the IP, you are selling you first, and then you need to have the backup proof. So when they first buy into you, then they'll go and look for proof points as to why that was the best choice, why you're the best choice. So then you need to have the proof point. And that's the rational part where we go and rationalize afterwards. But that's already got biases in it because we already wanted to work with that person, yeah?
Oh, there we go. I love it. Now, we've come towards the end. We crossed half an hour. Kristine, two things to close on. Can we please get a final closing thought from you and just explain to people how can they contact you to work with you if they so wish to, and I highly encourage.
So my final thought is this. Start talking to your ideal target market. Start having informal and informal research. Get to know them, understand them emotionally, and start speaking to them directly and connect with them more deeply, because it's through connection that we get the know, like, and trust. And that is so important. And if you want to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn, Kristine Bell with a K. And yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest place to find me, given we're on LinkedIn right now.
Oh, pleasure. There we go. There we go. And friends, you've heard it. I've known Kristine, I think, for the last decade. She's a woman you can trust and someone who will look after you. Kristine, thank you so much for your time. I just want to say on behalf of all of us at LinkedIn, we appreciate you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. And thank you for the last 6-7 years. It's been great fun.
It's a pleasure. Love your work, everyone.